The storm was supposed to kill them all. Pinned down, outnumbered, and left for dead. The Navy SEALs had only one word left: Mayday. But what answered wasn't a rescue team. It was a single sniper, and when her rifle cracked through the thunder, the storm itself seemed to fight for her. Asterisk, asterisk, what city are you watching from today? If this story resonated with you, hit subscribe for more real stories about extraordinary people. Asterisk, asterisk, the storm raged over the jagged cliffs of the Baltic coast. Wind howled like 1,000 wolves, waves crashed with the fury of war drums, and the night sky bled lightning across the darkened sea. Somewhere beyond that chaos, a SEAL team was trapped. Their voices cracked over the coms. Mayday, Mayday, we're pinned down. Request immediate support. Their words were jagged, laced with fear and desperation. These were men who had stared death in the face countless times. But tonight was different. The storm had swallowed their extraction point. The enemy had circled them like predators in the dark. Miles away, inside a dimly lit forward operating base, one soldier listened. She wasn't like the others. She was quiet, deliberate, with eyes sharp enough to pierce the veil of any storm. Her name was Captain Alina Voss, a sniper whose legend had whispered across NATO for years. The men called her the Phantom because she appeared when hope was gone. She never raised her voice, never wasted a bullet. And when SEALs cried Mayday, Alina always answered. She closed her eyes as the storm rattled the windows around her. She could hear the chaos through the static-filled coms gunfire, shouts, the storm itself clawing at every word. But beneath it all, she caught the tremor of fear in their voices. Her commanding officer hesitated. No one can get through that storm. Extraction is impossible. Elena's hand tightened around her rifle case. Her voice cut through the room, calm, but unyielding. Then I'll go. The room fell silent. Men twice her size stared. Someone muttered, it's suicide. But Alina was already walking toward the door, her long cloak catching the wind. She carried no hesitation, only the weight of unseen lives. For the SEALs lost in the storm, their last hope was a lone sniper, a shadow against the thunder. Alina tightened the strap of her pack. The world outside the base was chaos. Wind shrieked like banshees, rain lashed like knives, and the mud beneath her boots was already turning into quicksand. She moved anyway. Every step into the storm felt like defying death itself. The other soldiers at the base stood in the doorway, watching as her silhouette disappeared into sheets of rain and rolling thunder. One whispered under his breath, God help those SEALs. She's the only one who can. Far ahead, the SEAL team huddled behind jagged rocks, their bodies soaked, their ammo running low. They were Team Havoc, veterans of dozens of missions. But tonight they looked less like warriors and more like hunted prey. Bullets cracked against stone. The enemy was relentless, using the storm as cover. We can't hold much longer. One SEAL shouted over the storm. Another tried the comes again. Mayday, anybody? We're losing ground. Static. Nothing but static. Then, like a ghost carried on the wind, a woman's voice cut through the storm. Hold your ground. I'm coming. For a moment, the SEALs froze. Their eyes widened. It wasn't command. It wasn't their extraction team. It was her. Is that the Phantom? One whispered, disbelief in his voice. The leader, Chief Ramirez, clenched his jaw. He had heard stories, just like the rest of them. A female sniper who never missed, a soldier who showed up when hope was already gone. Legends, they thought. Myths. But tonight, in the storm, the myth was real. Alina climbed higher onto the cliffs, the storm nearly ripping her from the rocks. Lightning painted the world in brief flashes of white fire. Through her scope, she could barely see, but she didn't need perfect vision. She needed patience. Her breath slowed. The world shrank to the crosshairs. A flash of movement, enemy muzzle fire. She adjusted. One shot cracked across the storm. The bullet found its mark. Far below. A SEAL lifted his head. That was her. She's here. Their morale, which had been crumbling, lit like fire in the rain. They fought harder, bought her seconds, each heartbeat echoing like a drum above them. Alina whispered to herself, almost a prayer. Not tonight. You won't take them tonight. The storm did everything it could to blind her. Rain hammered against Elena's scope, fog rolled across the cliffs, and wind shoved at her shoulders like an invisible enemy. Yet she lay there, belly against the cold rock, her sniper rifle steady, her breathing slowed. Inhale, hold, exhale. Through the storm's chaos, a muzzle flash bloomed again. She squeezed the trigger. The storm roared, thunder rolled, but her bullet cut through it all like destiny. Far below, one of the enemy soldiers fell. Another tried to move in the darkness, and again, Elena's rifle spoke. One shot, one fall. To the SEALs pinned against the rocks. It felt like angels were firing from the heavens. The Phantom was real, and she was on their side. Jesus Christ. One of them muttered, eyes wide. She's taking them out, one by one. Chief Ramirez clenched his rifle tighter. Hope, something he hadn't dared feel for hours, flickered back into his chest. Hold the line, boys. She's here. But Alina wasn't invincible. The storm's fury made every shot a gamble. Her vision blurred with rain. Her fingers were numb from cold, and every muscle in her body ached as she clung to the cliff. Yet what kept her steady was not training. Alone, it was memory. she saw flashes of her past, her father, a soldier who had never come home, the folded flag her mother held, the nights Alina had sworn she'd never let another team die waiting for help. That never came. Her voice cracked softly into the combs. Seals, you're not alone. Not tonight. And though the storm swallowed most of her words, they heard enough. The enemy realized something was wrong. Their prey was fighting harder. Fear began to ripple through their ranks. They searched the cliffs, shouting in their own tongue, trying to spot the ghost killing them one by one. Alina wiped the rain from her scope and adjusted. Another flash. Another shot. Another fall. But this time, her position was revealed. Bullets screamed toward her perch, stone shattering inches from her face. She rolled behind cover, heart pounding. Still, she whispered to herself, calm, steady, unshaken. You found me. Now try to reach me. The crack of gunfire ripped through the storm. Alina ducked behind the jagged stone, shards of rock slicing across her cheek. For the first time that night, the storm no longer hid her. It betrayed her. The enemy had found the ghost. Dozens of rifles opened fire. Tracer rounds, streaking through the rain like fireflies. The cliffside exploded around her. Each second she stayed still was a death sentence. Alina pressed her back against the stone, chest heaving. Her hands were trembling from the cold, her rifle slick with rain. But her eyes still burned with focus, through the combs. She whispered, Seals, they've got my position. Silence answered. Then Ramirez's voice, ragged but fierce. Phantom, hold on, we'll move to cover you. Alina closed her eyes for a moment. She could hear the desperation in his voice, but if they moved now, they would be slaughtered. She knew it. No, she said firmly. Stay alive. That's an order. She slid across the wet stone, dragging her rifle with her, moving just inches at a time. Bullets screamed overhead. Her body pressed flat, her cloak drenched. She looked like nothing more than a shadow clinging to the cliff. Finally, she found another angle. She wiped her scope clean with a shaking glove. Lightning lit up the battlefield for a heartbeat, and in that heartbeat, she found them. The enemy commander. He was shouting orders, pushing his men forward. Certain the storm had won for him, Alina steadied her rifle. The world went silent. Her finger curled against the trigger. Crack. The commander fell. Confusion tore through the enemy lines. Their stormborn confidence shattered. Down below. The SEALs saw the opening. Ramirez roared over the rain. Now, push forward. The trapped men surged with newfound fury, cutting through the chaos. For the first time all night, they weren't retreating. They were fighting to win, but the victory came at a cost. The enemy, furious, turned everything they had toward Alina. Mortar fire shook the cliffs, the earth splitting beneath her body. She scrambled, her rifle nearly torn from her hands. She bit her lip hard enough to draw blood. If this cliff falls, I fall with it. Her voice, soft but certain, carried through the combs. Ramirez, if I don't make it, don't you dare finish that, he snapped. We're getting out of here together. And for the first time, Alina almost smiled. The cliff shook beneath her belly as another mortar round detonated nearby. Alina pressed herself flat against the stone, her ears ringing, lungs burning from smoke and rain. The enemy had lost their commander, but instead of breaking, their rage doubled. They wanted revenge, not against the SEALs anymore, but against the ghost who haunted them from the cliffs. Every muzzle turned upward. Every bullet searched for her silhouette. Down below, Ramirez shouted through the combs, his voice ragged. Phantom, get out of there. They're trying to bury you alive. Alina wiped the blood from her temple, her hands steadying her scope. Her voice came back calm, almost soothing, even as the storm howled around her. If I move now, you die. If I stay, you live. Don't say that, Ramirez barked. But Alina didn't argue. She simply shifted her rifle, her breath slowing once again. In her mind, she wasn't on a cliff anymore. She was a child again, staring at a folded flag. She was a soldier again, kneeling by her fallen brothers. She was a ghost who had sworn no team would be left behind. Her finger tightened on the trigger. One shot, an enemy machine gunner fell. Another shot, a sniper dropped from a rooftop perch. A third, a mortar crew silenced midload. Each crack of her rifle bought the SEALs another heartbeat of survival. The storm itself seemed to scream with her, each thunderclap echoing her shots. Down below, the SEALs pressed forward with renewed fury. They weren't running anymore. They were advancing. For the first time all night, they saw victory within reach. But Alina could feel it, the cliff crumbling beneath her, the storm tearing at her body, the enemy fire drawing closer with every second. She whispered into the combs, her voice barely audible through the static. Ramirez, if I fall tonight, tell them I did it for them. Tell them no one, cried Mayday in vain. Her words cracked, but her hands never wavered. And for a moment, as lightning lit the battlefield, she didn't look like a soldier. She looked like something more, a guardian, a phantom, a promise kept alive in the storm. The cliff groaned under Alina's weight. Chunks of stone broke free, crashing into the storm-tossed sea below. Every recoil from her rifle brought her closer to the edge. But she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. The SEALs were pushing forward. Each meter gained carved from her sacrifice. Ramirez shouted into the combs, voice raw, Phantom, Enough, you'll die up there. But Elena's reply came steady, calm, like she had already made peace with her fate. Then I die where I belong. Suddenly, an explosion shook the battlefield. A rocket-propelled grenade struck the cliffside, tearing half of it away. Elena's body was thrown against the stone, her rifle slipping from her grip. For a heartbeat, the storm went silent. Then Phantom, Ramirez's scream tore through the cums. The SEALs looked up just in time to see her silhouette, half buried in rubble, dangling dangerously close to the edge. Her cloak whipped violently in the wind, her hand clawing at the rock to keep from falling into the black abyss below. Ramirez's men wanted to rush to her, but he held up a hand, his eyes locked on her flickering beacon through the storm. Damn it, if we go now, we all die. The team hesitated, torn between orders and the gut-wrenching truth. She had saved them. Now they were forced to choose, complete the mission or save the Phantom. Above, Elena's vision blurred. Blood trickled down her face, mixing with the rain. Her body screamed to let go, to give in to the storm, but in her earpiece, she heard it, the SEALs' gunfire, their shouts, their desperate fight for survival, and something inside her refused to surrender. With trembling strength, she dragged herself back to her rifle. Her fingers closed around the cold steel once again. Her voice, broken but unyielding, crackled over the cums. Don't stop fighting. Not while I breathe. The SEALs roared, their morale ignited like wildfire. Ramirez cursed under his breath, then bellowed to his men, "Fine, we end this and then we bring her home." The storm itself seemed to tremble as SEALs surged with newfound fury, cutting through the last line of enemies. Every bullet they fired felt like an answer to her courage, but above them, Elena remained locked between life and legend, one slip away from vanishing into the sea forever. The battlefield had shifted. Where moments ago, the SEALs were cornered prey, now they were hunters. Every shot they fired was fueled by rage and gratitude. The Phantom had given them back their will to fight. One by one, the enemy fell. Their lines collapsed, their will broken. The storm no longer hid them. It scattered them in panic. Pushed through, Ramirez roared, his voice hoarse but unstoppable. For her, for the Phantom, the SEALs surged like a tidal wave, cutting down the last pockets of resistance until the cliffs fell, silent except for the thunder above and the waves below. But victory was hollow without her. Ramirez lifted his eyes toward the shattered cliff. Through the rain, he saw her Elena, half buried in rubble, gripping her rifle like it was the only anchor keeping her from the abyss. Her body hung dangerously close to the edge, blood and water streaking down her face. "Move," Ramirez barked. "Get ropes, now." Two SEALs scrambled, tossing lines across jagged rocks. Another pair laid down suppressive fire, just in case, though the enemy was already broken. Fear still clung to them. Ramirez himself clipped into a line. His men protested, but his glare silenced them. "She saved us. I'm not leaving her behind." The climb was brutal. Rain pounded his helmet. The wind tried to rip him from the stone, and the cliff crumbled beneath his boots. But Ramirez pushed on, every muscle burning, until he reached her. "Phantom," he shouted, his voice nearly torn away by the storm. Her eyes fluttered open, barely conscious. "Still," she whispered. "You weren't supposed to come." Ramirez clenched his jaw, hooking her harness to his line. "And you weren't supposed to save us alone. But here we are." The rope groaned as he dragged her up, her body limp but her grip on the rifle unbroken. Inch by inch, they rose above the abyss until finally, with the help of his team, they collapsed onto solid ground. The SEALs surrounded her, shielding her from the storm. Their breaths were heavy, their faces streaked with rain and dirt, but their eyes burned with respect. For the first time, one of them spoke what they all felt. "She's not a myth. She's one of us." Elena's lips curved into the faintest smile before her eyes closed, exhaustion overtaking her. The storm still raged, but for the SEALs, the night was already over. They had lived because she had answered their cry for help, and as they carried her back through the storm, every man knew one truth. Legends weren't born in stories. Legends were forged in nights like this. The storm had begun to ease. Rain softened from knives to tears. Thunder rolled further into the distance, and the first pale light of dawn broke across the horizon. The SEALs moved carefully, carrying Elena between them. Every step was heavy, not only from exhaustion but from the weight of what she had done. She stirred, her voice barely above a whisper. "Did you make it?" Ramirez leaned down, his voice rough but steady. "We made it because of you." Her lips curved into a faint smile, though her eyes stayed closed. For Elena, that answer was enough. When they finally reached the extraction point, the storm had left the land scarred, trees splintered, earth torn apart, smoke and ash carried on the wind. But through the destruction, their evac bird descended like salvation. Medics rushed forward, reaching for Elena. One tried to take her rifle, but her hand refused to let go. Even unconscious, she held onto it as if parting from it meant parting from her promise. The medic looked to Ramirez. He simply shook his head. "Let her keep it. She's earned that much." On the flight out, silence filled the cabin. The SEALs sat around her stretcher, their faces battered, their bodies broken, but their eyes fixed on her. One finally spoke. "I thought she was just a story." Ramirez's reply was quiet, but heavy with truth. She was the story that saved us. Days later, reports spread across the NATO ranks. Soldiers whispered about the mission where a female sniper answered a mayday through a storm. Some called her the Phantom, others the Storm Angel. But to the SEALs of Team Havoc, she was something simpler, something truer. Their guardian. Elena recovered slowly, her body scarred but her spirit unbroken. And when she finally stood again, she refused medals, refused speeches. All she said was, "No team cries for help alone. Not while I'm still breathing." And with that, she returned to the shadows, ready for the next storm. Because legends do not retire, they wait, they answer. And when the world cries Mayday, the Phantom will always answer. Thanks for being here till the end. If this story moved you, give it a like, subscribe for more real moments, and share your thoughts. I read every comment.